What's up, everybody? Garrett back here, and I'm with
Kyle.
My brother Kyle. We just got done seeing the brand new movie from Oz Perkins, The Monkey. Now, The Monkey is an interesting one. This is one that I've been wanting to see. It's actually one of my most anticipated movies of this year.
Really?
I don't know if you know kind of the backstory with this.
I went into this completely blind. You know, when you asked me to go to a movie, of course I'm going to say yes.
So we were lucky enough to get an early screening to see this brand new movie. It's a Stephen King adaptation. It's an old book. It's actually called Skeleton Crew. And this book was kind of full of short stories. The Monkey was one of those stories. Along with The Mist, which came out, I don't know, it could have been 20 years, 15 years ago.
I love that movie, though.
It's a good movie, but that was another short story that was adapted from that Skeleton Crew book. This is kind of the follow-up to that, and I actually heard that this was supposed to come out kind of almost a couple of years after Mist, so they kind of missed the boat on it. It's been a while. But it's here now. Oz Perkins directed it. He also was the one who directed Longlegs, which I know we both liked.
Loved
as well.
it. Yep.
So
we saw that together, too.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, that is right. We did see him. We did see a long legs.
We're a big Oz Perkins family here.
This was an interesting one because I was super stoked for it because I saw the trailer and it looked awesome. It looked brutal. It looked frightening. So I was really excited to kind of see what they did here, especially how Longlegs went. I was like, oh, I'm really excited to kind of see how they adapt this story. And I have a kind of funny backstory with the Monkey is because that image on the book for Skeleton Crew is the same image from Monkey Shines.
That's when I saw the poster, I said, dude, this is just Monkey Shines.
Yeah, so that was always weird to me because that VHS cover like always kind of caught my eye when we were little kids. Monkey Shines. And I thought for such a long time that Monkey Shines was a Stephen King adaptation, and only until recently, probably within the last like couple of years, that I realized that it wasn't, and it was a George Romero kind of original. The Monkey is actually the one that I always thought was the Stephen King story. So a big thing with the Stephen King, Monkey Shines, The Monkey kind of crossover there. I want to talk about this movie, and the first thing I want to talk about is between the Monkey Shines poster, it's got the same image of the monkey on it, right?
Well, it's weird. It's like, it's literally the exact...
Well, kind of, because...
Maybe it's my memory is
the
just failing me a little
book is
bit.
very close. It's almost identical. The poster of this movie, The Monkey, is pretty close to the poster of Monkey Shines. But there's one thing that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about is that this monkey is based off an old toy called a Jolly Chimp.
Sure, right? I know that, yeah.
Okay,
but that was the one that had the...
That's the interesting part. On the book, it's the symbols on the cover.
On the book of this movie?
Yeah.
Huh.
They had to change it to a drum because Disney owns the Jolly Chimp now from Toy Story.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm a drummer. I like the drum.
Yeah, but it was just funny because I don't think a lot of people have mentioned that it's not the symbols that we're all used to seeing on the book of Skeleton Crew.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to somebody that we saw this, and I said, "Oh, you remember the toy monkey?" And I did this when I was talking about the toy monkey, not even thinking that there was a drum. So I guess you're right.
Yeah, so super weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
But definitely a fun fact. And I've always wanted one of those Jolly Chimp toys. For so long, they're kind of hard to come by. They're
I bet
pretty
Toy
expensive.
Story makes them.
But I hope that someone comes out with this version of the monkey because this was a cool toy.
I agree. Yeah,
I think it
looked creepy as hell. Yeah,
looked
for sure.
creepy.
Yep.
I think it was super effective.
There was nothing behind his eyes. You know what I mean?
Right, he had that creepy smile. Yeah. But let's get into
he was very wood.
He was very wood, but he had the fur.
He did, but like his fit, like in his lips and everything, you could see like wood grain.
Yeah, he was a really nice detailed piece.
I agree.
Looked like a very expensive old.
Well, that's what I said to you in the movies. I said, "Dude, you gonna buy that monkey when it comes out?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Like I said, I was excited going into this. He didn't know anything about this going in. So with that being said, when it comes to this movie,
well, can we before we give away how we really feel about it? I think there's an important distinction that I made when we were watching this when, it started out and I was like all in. Like what, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes I was like, this movie is awesome. I'm like having a great time watching this. And probably you felt the same way, right? The whole intro and the way they were building up to this thing, you probably thought it was great.
Oh, I loved the whole... I'm going to say I loved definitely the first half of this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Then there was a big switch in what kind of happened with the movie itself and some of the characters. They started to get older, so it kind of brought you to a different part of their life. But that's where I feel like the movie's tone really started to change.
Well, And it's not even like when the characters got older. It was a little further out than that, but there was definitely a switch of something.
A very tonal switch, and that's what I was going to say about this movie. Going into it, I didn't think there was going to be any of that. Like, if you watch the trailer, it's not really comedic at all.
Well, was this movie supposed to have comedy elements in it? Like, did you, because you knew about it, did you think going into this it was going to be funny?
No.
At all?
No.
Oh, but I only knew you wicked off guard.
Yeah, like I only knew the trailer. Like I didn't look at reviews or write-ups or anything like that. I only based it on the trailer, which looked pretty scary, pretty freaky. And, you know, I assumed by the way they talked in the trailer there was going to be some pretty violent kills. And I was going into this thinking I was going to get something kind of like Longlegs as far as tone. And something creepy and violent. Like, and I love movies that involve toys, like, you know, Child's Play and all that stuff. Like, I love all that kind of stuff. And I was hoping that we were going to kind of get that to an extent. I didn't necessarily need the monkey to be like a killer or anything like that. But I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. But this is very much like a Final Destination. This movie was just flat out a comedy. I would literally, yes, it was a horror movie. It was a thriller. There was a lot of that mixed in, but I think at its heart, this is a comedy. It was definitely felt more of a comedy with horror elements than a horror movie with comedic elements in it, and that was just not what I was expecting going in. Like it felt even like an Evil Dead 2 or like I'm trying to think of another, or Dead Alive. I mean, yeah, it was obviously intentional the way they were doing the cuts and the shots and everything, but I don't know if it worked completely. I don't think it worked as good as something like that. I really do think the humor in this is very similar to something like Dead Alive. It was almost kind of very hokey at times. Like, it was a very over the top. Sometimes I wasn't sure if it was like trying to be overly funny or if it was just bad dialogue. Like, I really wasn't sure exactly what was going on. Now, again, that was the tone shift that we're talking about and how this went to almost be slapstick-like in context. Well, but it was slapstick from the beginning, really. So it wasn't really... I think the tone shift happened when the movie would have certain scenes, right, where there was no comedy at all. And then it would also have scenes where it was like all comedy. And then it would also have scenes where it was like a mix of comedy and... So like there was like no consistency with the tone, I think. Yeah, now... Did I like it? Did we like it? I think the pros of it was the kills were pretty cool. Like, I don't think that they were like Terrifier level gross and brutal. They were over the top. Yeah, I agree. With a comedic element in some of them. Like I said, it did feel like a lot of Final Destination style of a movie where it wasn't like a slash or anything like that. Like, situations were happening and it was due to something like the monkey. But it really just started to become one of those things where I do think people are going to like the kills. I think they're a little over the top in the sense that I don't know if people are going to go into this thinking it's going to be like Terrifier level gore or anything like that. It was more Dead Alive level killing. Again, it was a very interesting movie, and it was kind of almost hard for me to come out and talk about this because I don't know how to even explain it. It's very different of a movie that I'm used to seeing. I think when it comes to a horror movie, it's just it has a tone that I'm just haven't seen in such a long time. And I think what really took me back a little bit with this is that I wasn't expecting this. It might be better on a second watch, knowing what the movie's about, knowing the tone of the whole movie. I think on a second watch, I would probably like it better. But I was pretty taken back by the tone of the whole movie in general. I remember sitting there and looking at you and being like, "What the fuck's going on?" Yeah, like there was scenes that weren't supposed to be funny that then became funny. Yeah. You know, like, well, there was a lot of stuff that happened in the movie where it just didn't, like, we talked about this even today, talking about getting ready for this review. We felt like we fell asleep. Yeah, like there's stuff that I feel like because I feel like I missed big chunks of the story. But it would be weird that we both would have like dozed off at the same time. Maybe, I don't know. Like there was something in the trailer that I don't remember at all in the movie. I asked him, he didn't remember it. Then there was a scene in the movie where something happens, something pretty important happens. And I don't remember any kind of lead up to it. And then I asked him, and he's like, "I don't think so." And I'm like, "Did I like doze off for a second, or were they just doing things?" And that got us talking about a situation. We watched a video with the creators of South Park, and it was, what was the video? It was almost like how to make a good show. I think they were doing a seminar at a film school or something, and they were talking about how they use this formula, and it's a classic formula in movies where, you know, when you write out all your plot points,
if they don't connect by the phrases therefore or but. If they connect by the phrase and then you know that you just have a disjointed movie that doesn't, like, the actions aren't part of the movie. You just have these plot points that just exist for the sake of existing.
And I think that's what it was. It was almost like if they were writing this, they said, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and instead of having things kind of make a little bit more sense on, like, this happened here because of X, Y, Z. And I do feel that it was just trying to throw a lot at you just to kind of get the laughs or like the gross out, like, oh, you know.
Well, you said this is a short story, right?
It was. So he obviously had to create a lot of stuff that wasn't
that's what
there.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
But I also did read before we just went on here and did this, is that Oz Perkins thought the original script was too dark and too violent. So he added, it seemed like, the comedic elements to it to make it more of a dark comedy, when the original script did not do that. He felt he wanted to take this story and make it more like this. Now, I've never read the book, and he hasn't either, so I don't know what the tone is of the book. But it seemed like that he wanted to make this more of a dark comedy than a straight-up horror movie after he got the original script.
So the original short story, from what you read, wasn't funny?
That's what it seemed like by when I read a little bit about this. So it was a different take, obviously, than maybe what was intended. And I mean, you could tell that from the trailer, and obviously the movie was done before the trailer came out, but they didn't advertise this, in my opinion, and I only saw one trailer, so if there was more, I apologize, but it didn't advertise what I felt like I got here. And again, at the end of the day, I'm going to say people are going to find this fun, and a lot of people will say that when it comes to horror movies, like, it was okay, it was fun. It was fun, but I did think it dragged a little bit, and it wasn't a long movie. There was some parts that I felt like, okay, that was cool. I was happy at that, but some of the dialogue was really weird at a lot of points. And I feel like it got to a point in the movie where they were just trying to, like, figure out how to get this over with. And, like, it started going places that I just felt like didn't really match what we had in the earlier part of the story. Like, the earlier part of the story was more of, like, it took place kind of, like, in the suburbs and stuff. And then it kind of trailed off into, like, other areas and stuff where I just didn't get the same vibe as I got. I mean, I guess when it comes down to the monkey.
Let me just say this. The funny parts I thought were funny. Most of them.
I think some were funny, but some felt forced to me.
At the beginning of the movie, I was laughing a lot. And I was fully entertained at the beginning of the movie. And there were, like you said, a lot of things that happened in the movie that were like why is he doing that?
Yeah, I feel like when it came to some of the jokes, and you could even tell by the audience that was there, it's almost like you heard like a snicker every once in a while, like where people like, oh, I think we're supposed to laugh at this. Like you weren't really sure sometimes where you're like, oh, was that a joke or?
That's the whole issue with the tonality, though. You know, if the movie had a set tone, I think people would laugh more.
And there was definitely some loose ends. I think, like, so for instance, we can talk about this. Like, I thought the kids did great, and what I didn't realize was that little boy played both parts, and the adult played both parts.
I didn't realize the little boy did either.
So that's what I think.
They did a great job differentiating them.
They did.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, the monkey itself was cool. The kills were cool. The actors did a fine job. Yeah. You had,
what they had, for sure.
A cameo from Elijah Wood, which I thought was really cool. I mean,
I didn't want to talk about that because that pissed me off because I like Elijah Wood a lot, and two,
that's the
fact that there's only a cameo and not a tie-in or anything was just like, what a waste.
That was what we talked about before. There was no here's Elijah Wood, and therefore
there's no payoff to having it.
But it's like here's Elijah Wood, and then here is it's
not Elijah Wood.
Yeah, so I mean, there was points in this movie where I'm like, well, what about that story that we just learned about? And there was a dynamic between the son and the father at one point, which you'll see, and I feel like it was just very weird based on what we knew about their history. As this movie's progressing and you're learning a little bit about them and they're hanging out. And there was a lot of times I looked over at you and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like there was a lot of stuff in this movie that to me just didn't make any logical sense when it had to do with the boy and his father and their relationship and what they wanted to do with the boy and his father, and then the boy and his father having conversations about stuff that I'm like, there's no way he would have no idea about this at all. 14 years old, right? Like, after all this time.
He's never asked him these questions before.
Yeah, like, I think it's strange. Like, I just don't know if it was, like, purposefully done that way.
Well, and it's one of those things where you don't want to, like, logic test movies like this where a monkey is making things happen to kill people, right? You don't want to sit there and be like, well, this doesn't make sense. You have to really use your imagination to believe that a 14-year-old would be asking his dad some of these questions.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of that stuff is like, that's easy fix, though.
100%.
You know, it wasn't
just don't have him ask the questions.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was so many easy fixes to those problems that I feel like I don't really understand what went on here. So, again, I would say check it out. I mean, it's different. That's I just want you to go into it and know that, like, hey, maybe what I saw in the trailer is not exactly what I'm going to get here, and be okay with that. I do think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to love it. I do think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to hate it, and I kind of understand both. Now, maybe like you said, when this comes out on physical media, I'll probably pick it up and rewatch it again because, again, maybe knowing what I know now, I'll be able to appreciate it a little bit more. But going into it, there was a lot of times I was just kind of like, this is not what I thought this was going to be. And I was looking forward to this creepy and scary and violent horror movie.
New era of a toy movie, a killer toy. We're finally getting it again.
Like, I like Stephen King's work. I like, Oz Perkins. So I was hoping for something a little bit better.
Well, crazy about this, too, is I thought we saw Longlegs together, and I thought that movie was shot artistically. I thought there was some shots in that movie that are like, wow, that's a really cool shot. The way the framing is really cool. The atmosphere is really cool. And this movie didn't have, like, any of the artistic shots, artistic angles, any of the videography things that Longlegs has. It's had, like, none of it.
Yeah, like, if you would have told me this was put out by Blumhouse, I probably would have
100%. I would have, too.
I think that's where it kind of gets a little bit weird because it does feel a little bit more of, like, that style of a horror movie rather than, like, something you'd see from Neon. But, yeah, guys, so let us know down below. Again, we tried our best not to spoil this at all. There's a lot we can say about this.
I didn't hate it.
No, I didn't hate it.
No,
I think that people just need to know what they're getting going into it. And again, I think it's also okay to kind of, I don't like the direction they took here. I would have rather had this what I thought it was going to be personally. I know some people like horror comedies. I do too. But there's a limit to me. Like, I need a specific element of comedy in my horror where I think this kind of flipped it. It was a little bit too hokey for me, though, I think, in specific ways. But that's just my style. Like, I thought the beginning of this movie, the tone was okay. And then I feel like it started to shift a little bit more. And I think if they would have just kept it where it was and wrote it, that would have been just enough. But I feel like it started to get a little bit too, like you said, like discombobulated almost.
It felt like there was a different guy that directed the second half than the first, I would say.
And you do get a cameo, which I didn't even realize he was in this, from Corey Cunningham, Rowan Campbell from Halloween Ends. I didn't realize he was even in this movie, so it was kind of a cool thing to see him in here. But again, unless we fell asleep, I feel like there's some questions about that character that we still have. So let us now.
So wait, that guy ruins 2 movies?
Let us
Can't say that, right?
No, he's all right. Corey Cunningham.
I'm joking.
He's just like he should have been Corey Cunningham. He just comes into like
that's ruined the movie. Yeah. I'm joking.
But guys, let me know if you've seen Monkey, or let me know if you haven't seen it yet and you checked out this spoiler-free review to see our thoughts, if it still persuades you to go see it or not. But like I said, I think it's worth a watch. Just know what you're getting into when you go see it. Again,
can we follow up this video when it comes out on DVD? Blu-ray, rather?
Yeah, and do spoilers.
Because I feel like there's a lot to talk about that we can't talk about specifically because, we don't want to spoil scenes and scenarios. I feel like if you wait till the Blu-ray comes out and then do a review with spoilers, I feel like, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about we can explain.
Yeah, I would, because I'm not going to go see it again in the theater. So I'll definitely do that so we can talk spoilers, because, again, maybe there is something that we missed. And also, too, this movie doesn't come out for another week, so we really don't want to spoil anything here because a lot of people have not seen this yet. So I want you guys to check this video out. And again, let us know down below, are you planning on seeing this? And what was your expectations going into this movie? Maybe because I didn't read anything about this, it would have explained to me that this was the vibe it was going for, a dark comedy. I didn't realize that going in. But guys, thank you for checking this out. This is Kyle and Garrett again at Born2beRad. And like always, stay